Warm greetings to you all. I'm Lieutenant Dr. Ajanta Parthasarathi, Associate NCC Officer of Sri SRNM College, Sato. I'm serving for 2TN Girls Battalion NCC, Madura. In this video, we are going to learn about leadership. Leadership traits are human qualities that are of great value to a leader. Possession of these traits simplifies the task of applying the leadership principles and assists greatly in winning the confidence, respect, and cooperation of other men. Individuals possess these traits in different degree according to the constitution of their character. These cause variation in the type of leadership exercised by individuals and make leadership a personal function. An individual can be benefited by studying the traits considered important to a leader, but with careful self-analysis and application, he can develop those traits in which he is deficient and further strengthen those in which he is strong. Now let's see some of the leadership traits. The first thing is alertness. In battle, a commander is called fleeting opportunities by the enemy, which if seized and exploited, can bring decisive victories to his force. Alertness of mind is what helps a commander to pick up these opportunities at the right time and exploit the situation to his own advantage. Next comes bearing. It denotes desirable physical appearance, dress, and deportment. A leader, and more so, an officer should therefore remember that his personal bearing will exercise a dominating and permeating influence, not only with his own men, but with the general public too. In public, therefore, as on parade, he must conduct himself in such a fashion that the uniform he bears is regarded by the general public not merely as a uniform, but as the hallmark of a great profession of arms to which he belongs. A profession whose prestige in times of war is virtually bound with a nation's destiny. Next comes courage. Courage is a mental state. It gets its strength from spiritual and intellectual sources. The way in which these spiritual and intellectual elements are blended produces roughly two types of courage. The first is emotional state, which urges a man to risk injury or death, is physical courage. The second, a more reasoning attitude, which enables him coolly to stake career, happiness, his whole future on his judgment of what he thinks either right or worthwhile, is moral courage. A leader must possess both forms of courage. Next, decisiveness. A logical thought process is essential for solving a problem or making a plan. Thereafter, the leader's intention and his proposed method of execution must be made perfectly clear to all taking part. He must therefore acquire the ability to make decisions promptly when required and announce them authoritatively, concisely, and clearly. The leader's power of decision results from his ability to remain unperturbed and disturbed in a crisis. His greatest assets are the ability to think rationally when his men have ceased to think, to be decisive in action when they are paralyzed by fear. Next, dependability. You cannot get very far in any sphere of activity without reliability. Set yourself high standards both for the amount of worry you get through and the quality of work, irrespective of supervision. Make a practice of carrying out all instructions and plans of your superiors to the best of your ability and always on time. Always be ready to help out in an emergency, even if it interferes considerably with your personal conveniences. Dependability has to be built up slowly by deliberate effort. It can be lost overnight if not guarded jealously. Next, endurance. A time comes in battle when both the opposing forces feel that probably they are fighting a losing battle. It is a time when battles are won or lost. The side which has that little extra endurance wins. It is the leader who has that extra endurance, both of mind and body, that can inspire his troops to produce that extra endurance required to win battle or accomplish the assigned task. Mental and physical endurance are complementary. There is an old adage, proverb, a healthy mind is a healthy body, still holds good and both are essential for a leader. Next comes enthusiasm. It is the display of genuine interest and zeal in the performance of duties. Enthusiasm comes from liking your job, having a living interest in all facets of your work, and seeing the possibilities for development of new ideas and techniques. However, humdrum an occupation may seem to some people, there is nearly always some feature in it which inspires the imagination. Jobs only appear dull, routine, or mechanical when they are looked at with dull eyes and a dull mind. Initiative. Initiative is the willingness to act or offer well considered recommendations in the absence of orders. It should always be done right away what you might have done later. In other words, initiative means one should not wait for things to happen, but one has the ability to see quickly what needs to be done, making up one's mind to do it and accomplishing it. When a choice between two courses is available, one cautious and other bold and daring, the trait required is daring initiative. Integrity. As a leader, one has to be honest, not only to oneself, but with the men one leads and the people with whom one works. Honesty and integrity are absolute qualities that one cannot compromise or alter. Any loss or weakness in moral character will result in losing the confidence of our superiors, contemporaries, and subordinates. Next comes judgment. This is the power of the mind to assess various factors and values quickly and often under difficult circumstances and arrive at a wise decision. It is learned by experience and practice. At times, a mistake or error of judgment may result, but it is more positive to learn from the mistake or error rather than fighting for exercising the power of judgment. Next comes justice, the quality of being impartial and consistent in exercising command. Dispense justice quickly. Justice delayed is justice denied. Next comes knowledge. A leader must know more than the men he commands. Until he does, he has no business to be called their leader. The profession of arms requires a great deal of practice, study, and experience, not only of military hardware, organization, tactics, and battle drills and procedures, but more importantly of characteristics and capabilities of the men he leads. The process of acquiring knowledge never ends. There is always something new to learn, even from rereading or rethinking of the same material or problem. Next comes loyalty. The quality of being faithful to the country, the army, the unit, subordinates, colleagues, and superiors. It is given by subordinates to a leader in the manner in which the leader gives the same to them and to his own leaders. A leader must never take shelter behind the shortcomings or mistakes of his subordinates. When plans for which he is responsible go wrong, he must take the blame, correcting the mistakes of subordinates himself. Every leader has the right to express his views to his superiors on any question under consideration. But once a decision has been reached, he must act on it as if it were his own decision. The last but not the least, sense of humor. The ability to appreciate the many amusing or lighter moments in everyday life, especially those which pertain to the leader himself. It is also the ability to remain cheerful under stress. At times when things go wrong in battle and tensions mount, humor, if it comes naturally at the appropriate time, can go a long way in diffusing a situation or raising sagging spirits. This, together with a sense of balanced optimism, are useful traits to develop. However, attempts at artificial quietness and sarcasm do more harm than good. Now let's see two types of leadership. The first one is autocratic style of leadership. The traditional autocratic style implies the total concern for mission accomplishment with little or no concern for human relations. It is based on the assumption that a leader derives power from the position he holds. A military leader holds an appointment position in a formal organization. The accountability for decisions and subsequent actions within his unit or command rests entirely with him. The higher officers in the organization use a highly centralized and autocratic style of leadership for making decisions and seldom consult subordinates. They rely primarily on their own ability and experience. The men you command are neither lazy nor reliable. They are loyal and hardworking. Win their confidence and they will lay down their lives for you. The next thing is democratic style of leadership. This is also known as non-directive style. This stresses the concern for human relationships. In this style of leadership, you share your responsibilities with your subordinates by involving them in both the planning and the execution of tasks. This style assumes that the real power of a leader is granted by the group he leads. This style also assumes that people can be basically self-directed and creative at work if properly motivated. Democratic style encourages group discussion and decisions are arrived through consensus. If you delegate much of authority for decisions making and execution to your subordinates, and invariably consult the views of subordinates before making key decisions, your style of leadership will be democratic. To a large extent, the persuasive leader bases his skill in leadership upon his personal examples and ability. Finally, in battle, there is no substitute for good, sound, and robust leadership. What needs attention is the cultivation of these qualities and their application. Essentially, a leader must gain and keep, whatever the circumstances, the respect and the confidence of his troops so that they willingly accomplish the mission. Leadership is a mixture of personal example, persuasion, and compulsion. It is by discipline that an army is built into a fighting mission. It is by leadership that the men and the missions are led to victory. Thank you all. This is our reference source.